We are so close to the top of the hour, we may as well start. Everybody's here anyway. By the way, Bob Blah Blah says, hey, Steve, how come is it you look healthy right now, but Friday night on the second channel, you were aging? And that's the whole point is the other channel, different things happen over there. I can be healthy on this channel and unhealthy on that one. Daniel Lester's in the house as Arts 4014. Mark Miller, of course. Duff Finn, see you Thursday. I'm speaking at the Stahl Museum near New Baltimore, Michigan. Look up Stahl. It's Stahl. You're supposed to make a reservation because they are already anticipating more people than normally show up for something like that. I'd like to think that's me, but I think it's the car. I'll be talking about the Chrysler Turbine car, and I will have books for sale and signing and all of that as well. So Bob Kerflugen's in the house, as is Mindbend 2026. Miko Angel QW. Bob Blah Blah, so we can talk about Lindsey Vonn. Yeah, Lindsey Vonn is an American downhill skier, and she just got over an injury a few weeks ago and was in the Olympics, did a training run that actually went pretty well. And then today during competition, didn't make it very far and had a horrific accident. I'm not studying it, but I am aware of it. I'll have to check that out later on. And of course, there's a big football game on later. I guess it'd be probably today sometime. Chuck Whitehead's checking in from Jonesboro. Sarah KC, good Sunday, Steve, and everyone. Idris Taylor, 5093. And greetings from the Magic Kingdom at Disney World. Love and Life, 1980. 1980, good year. Believe in yourself. Hello, Steve, Mark Miller, Dan Boyd, and crew from a chilly Napanee, Ontario. I mentioned earlier, I've got 17F. It is calm outside. I don't see any wind, nothing blowing around out there. But it's bright because the sun is out, and it's bouncing off the snow. But it's chilly. I was outside earlier, and it is very cold, very cold. Vinny Northwest, hi from Spokane. Fatty McButterpants says, hey, Steve, you look too healthy. Eat more junk food. Jason Brindamore, how many people are making chili today? Is that a Super Bowl thing? Is that something you do? Jerry Dodge says, I see Ben in the background. Yeah, you do. I'm assuming at least Ben is visible. Just Lucky 13 dropping in from Oregon Coast. Seal Rock 50 and raining. 50 and raining. MH08 points out it is 288 Kelvin. 288 Kelvin. You gotta do some conversions there to get to Fahrenheit or Celsius. PDXY, or I guess PDX yada yada. I'm now 72. Does that make me senior to you? Yes, you would be senior to me. Yes, you would be. Arts 4014, the New Jersey contingent is strong today. It's too cold to go out as it is minus 10 Celsius. Again, I have no idea. I mean, I know it's 10 below Celsius. It's freezing, but oh boy. Peter Mandix, do you have any plans on passing on your knowledge to the next generation? I'm not really sure how you go about doing it other than just shooting tons of videos and leaving them up on YouTube. Oh boy. Dan Boyd, Mexican Spec, won't be here because he's driving across Mexico and streaming it. You know, the one day I purposely thought I should use a cup specifically because he always asks why it doesn't match. And I saw at a 50-50 chance it's either going to be purple or blue. And I go, I'm wearing I'll get it just for Mexican Spec. But oh well, what are you going to do? Dr. Rick, Steve, great to see you. And great to see you, my friend. Matthias says the Baltic Sea is partly frozen. Greetings from Berlin. Wow, that I'm assuming makes it cold, right? Believe in yourself says Mr. and Mrs. Mexican Spec. Say hello from the road. They are delivering a Dodge Durango and streaming it. Very cool. I appreciate that. Dr. Rick, I have no interest in the Super Bowl. Neither do I. I know it's a cultural event. I'm actually not even sure who's playing. And I know people right now are going, what? You know something? No. Bob Blah Blah says I placed a bet on FanDuel. Today's Gatorade would be green. And you should have told me that beforehand. And then I could have assured that you'd win. And we just split it like some of those baseball pitchers have been doing. Rudolph Stewart, hi from Sweden. I hope that's pronounced Stewart. It's got a slightly different spelling. Bob Kerflugen, nice and minus 1F in Gaylord, Michigan. That's up quite a ways up in the lower peninsula, up towards the bridge, as we like to say. Maricopa Joe, 75 today. DePaul says -10. C is about 13 F. So that's not much colder than I'm looking at right now here in southeastern Michigan. Dan Boyd's shoveled about a ton of snow these past 2 weeks. I've moved a lot, but I have a snowblower. So I walk behind a snowblower and let it throw the snow someplace else, make it someone else's problem. Jason Brindamauer, I swear I heard that Eddie Bauer is going bankrupt. No, what I heard was they're closing all of their brick and mortars. Whether that's a sign of financial trouble or not, I don't know. The last time I was in a brick and mortar Eddie Bauer was at Somerset Mall in Troy about 2 months ago. And every time I go there, I walk through there, I look at the shirts to see if they have any colors I don't have, and that's it. Now, I have a bunch of Eddie Bauer stuff. I love Eddie Bauer stuff. But I don't often buy it from the store, and I think that's one of their problems. It's one of the things where they got great brand recognition, but people don't necessarily know where they are. Hopefully, they'll put this stuff in other stores, but they still will have the mail order business. Blissful Nessence. Morning, Mr. Lehto, and chat with a smiley face. I appreciate that. Miko Angel says, feels like it's been around 16 Celsius. Then a bunch of other letters that I think are mainly off in the middle row of the letters on the keyboard. Mark Doherty, Sundays with Steve and gang. Hey, everyone. Mark's got a big dog. How much does your dog weigh, Mark? Jay Klein says, Lindsey Vaughn tore her ACL a week ago. I thought she had it worked on a couple of weeks ago and was recovering, but I've heard different stories now, so you never know. The weird thing about downhill skiing, it is so strenuous in the sense that there are very few minor injuries. And it can get ugly at the speeds they're traveling. Vampire Bear, hello from Mark in Bucyrus, Ohio. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Daniel Kester's got jury duty starting on the 23rd. We'll make California couple kids to share if I can. Okay. I think it might be a typo in there somewhere. Kingfish Steven says, if the Super Bowl was in my front yard, I wouldn't crack the blinds. Oh, Steve 2 Clue. Happy Sunday. Good to be with you today. Pissed off handicap guy over 220 inches of snow in Calumet, Michigan. Yeah, Calumet, Michigan, and the whole Keweenaw Peninsula of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan is getting quite a bit of snowfall this year. They normally get a lot, but they're getting a lot this year. Arts 4014 says the Delaware River looks just like the Crossing of Delaware painting with, George Washington in the boat heading across the river. Oh, I only laugh because Nate Bargatze does that skit on Saturday Night Live where he plays George Washington, and one of them was in the boat as they crossed the river. Mark Miller, does Ford still have the Eddie Bauer Edition Explorers? I don't think so. I never had one. I know they had them, and I know they're an interesting thing, but I never had one. I've seen them, but I never had one. MH08, we need a Snoomba. I guess it just goes around out in your driveway and just putters around by itself, getting rid of the snow. Arts 4014, I stopped watching the Super Bowl and the commercials got lame. Greatest thing ever is that the Super Bowl people convinced Americans that you want to watch commercials. People are like, have you seen the latest commercial? Have you seen it? Now, I try not to watch commercials. Sultan of Cardio, where can I get a Steve Lehto t-shirt? You can get one, a Lehto's Law t-shirt. You can get one off of Zazzle. I've got a store on Zazzle, but they pay such little money. I haven't gotten a check from them in 3 years. I think I owe them money. So I don't even bother pushing it anymore. Oh, Daniel Castro says typo. Yes, he meant to say a couple of videos was what he's going to make, not kids. Making kids is a whole different thing. Oh, Daniel Castro, never been snow skiing, but been water skiing. I've never done either. I've never been snow skiing, never gone water skiing. I've been in boats. I've been on personal watercraft. I've gone skateboarding, which is probably the closest you'll get to snow skiing. I probably could if I, wanted to. Although at this age, I'm not sure if I want to learn a sport where you routinely fall down and break things. Jerry Dodge, I pay for the YouTube Premium specifically, so I don't have to watch ads. Yeah, and don't get me wrong, some of the ads are good because the audience is so large and so focused that some advertisers say, it's worth it to drop a couple $1 million on a 60-second ad. And Budweiser famously has made some very good ads. I will tell you right now that Budweiser's ad that they ran after 9/11 with the horses kneeling, one of the greatest ads ever made. And I know some people are going to say, Steve, you often rip on things that are unclear. What are they selling there? What are they selling? They're creating goodwill. They're creating goodwill. I mean, if you want to ask about what someone's selling, ask somebody what Subaru is selling when they show you dogs driving cars. Hey, I'm going to buy a car my dog can drive. No, that's not what they're selling. They're selling you a mindset. They're showing how they think about how they make the cars. And Budweiser is just showing you this whole wholesome all-American company that makes beer. And here's the thing, I don't drink beer. I see the ads, I want to go out and get drunk. To Paul, what about ice skating or roller skating? I've done both. I'm actually very good on ice skates. It's been a while. It's been a while since I've ice skated. It's also been a while since I've roller skated. But I went in high school roller skating with the square, the four, where there's four corners, as opposed to roller blades. I've done that also. And I've gone ice skating. Ice skating, of course, is a lot of fun. So Matthias says they're trying to establish the Super Bowl as an event in Germany. People are not buying it. I have a friend in New Zealand who said that she watches it, and it turns out to be at a really weird time because of the time change and all that. But, they know it's a big deal. But, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Some of the ads I see in the Super Bowl, I have no idea what they're advertising for. And some of them are just stupid. Like somebody at an advertising agency came up with like a joke where I can describe to you the joke, and you go, okay. But once you see the ad, it's not funny anymore. And I've seen a couple of those where it's like, okay, I don't get it. Matthias says, yeah, the lawyer dogs need cars to drive. That is true. They got to get to court somehow. Arts 4014. How about snowshoeing? No, but believe it or not, years ago, I wrote an article about a place that makes snowshoes in Michigan. They're just outside of McMillan. No, not McMillan. The other end. They're over towards the Munising end of the Seney stretch. Daniel Kester is pretty good roller skating, but not much on ice skating. Yeah, ice skating was a little harder than roller skating because of stability. You had to have either your skates laced really tightly or strong ankles. David Melbourne, I thought it's a law that kids in Michigan must learn to ice skate. Yeah, in fact, I walked through downtown Royal Oak yesterday. It's quite cold out, and they have an ice rink set up. And it was cold, and there's like 4 people on the ice rink and a DJ playing hits from the 80s. Lewis Browning says the Lehto t-shirts on Zazzle are nice. I have a couple I wear on camera once in a while. I got the black one with the logo right here, but yeah, Johnny Z says parts of the world, it's Super Bowl Monday. Mike Z, how about that thing on Zug Island that was vibrating the whole of Detroit and Windsor area? Did they ever figure that out? I've been on Zug Island before, and Zug Island's an island in the Detroit River, and it's known for being a place where they manufacture steel, believe it or not. I think U.S. Steel had a big presence there. A lot of iron ore boats would come down from Minnesota and Michigan and offload there, and a lot of big, heavy equipment. Blah, 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 Snowshoe Falls. Well, there is a set of falls called Snowshoe Falls not far from Munising. That's what you're asking. Sean M., how much does it cost to put a Super Bowl ad on TV? I know it's in the millions. And believe it or not, I wouldn't be surprised if they also have a premium as to when your ad appears. I'd rather have my ad be in the middle of the first quarter than after the fourth quarter, Sultan of Cardio says, hey, Steve, you look older than you did yesterday. You should call your doctor. Dude, if you can spot 1 day of aging, you should work in a carnival. Jay Klein, when I lived in Denmark, the Super Bowl was live on TV. The game started at midnight. Yeah. Darkwood, I haven't been ice skating in decades. I think it's probably been decades for me also. Believe it or not, when I worked at WTRX in Flint, I played in a charity hockey game at the IMA Arena. Didn't fall down, so that's all I cared about. Arts 4014, does Zazzle have Steve Lehto shirts in double XL? I hope they do. That's the size I wear. Rhino, hello from Grand Haven. Grand Haven, over on the west coast of the lower peninsula of Michigan. Yeah, Donald Westerdale says I could look younger because I had some work done. I had some work done. Oh, boy. David Melbourne, when I was a kid, most of the parks in St. Clair County had ice rinks. When I was a little kid in Birmingham, I remember there was a set of tennis courts on Lincoln over near Seaholm High School. And I'm assuming they did something to flood it or something because it was all iced and people would skate there. And I remember telling my mom I want to go ice skating. She'd go, okay. And she'd drive me over, drop me off, and I'd say, come back in 2 hours. She'd come back 2 hours and pick me back up again. Oh, Vampire Bear. Please talk about the passing of Tigers legend Mickey Lolich. And also the guy from Three Doors Down passed away, a young guy. Mickey Lolich was a hero from the Detroit Tigers, one of the greatest left-handed pitchers of all time. And he is famous for winning 2 games in the 1968 World Series, where Bob Gibson was on the other team. And the Tigers took it to 7 games. And Mickey Lolich won 2 of them. And I believe he also hit a home run in one of them, which is just unheard of. And he was one of the nicest guys on earth, one of the best baseball players. Back at a time when there were like 3 guys on the team named Mickey. It was a common name. Mickey Lolich, Mickey Stanley, Mickey's everywhere. And it's fallen out of popularity apparently. But he passed away recently, and I've heard so many stories about what a nice guy he was. My good friend Dwayne Beeman told me a story about stopping into a little town up in the thumb of Michigan someplace, and he had his kid with him, and they're going to play baseball. And the guy behind the counter said, oh, do you know who Mickey Lolich is? And my friend's son said, yeah. And he goes, come by tomorrow, and I'll get you his autograph. And so my friend left a baseball and came back next day, and there's a hand-signed baseball by Mickey Lolich. And you might say, how do you know the guy signed it? Well, later on, my friend said he ran into Mickey Lolich at Tiger Stadium baseball with this, and he mentioned the guy's name, and the guy goes, oh, yeah, it's a friend of mine. I remember that. Arts 4014, can you give a yard wildlife report? Have not seen any animals in a couple days. It's so cold. Everybody's gone to ground, as they say. I feel bad. I looked out the window the other day, and I saw a deer limping through my yard, limping. And I don't know how bad if it's injured, got hit by a car, hurt its foot, don't know. But I got to keep my eyes peeled. Yeah, Arts 4014, the Three Doors Down guy died of cancer. And I believe he's in his 40s. But the song Kryptonite is fantastic. One of the greatest radio airplay songs of that era. Yeah, Bob Blah Blah points out, and I'm just speculating as to what the meaning of your statement is there, that perhaps it's Tony Basil's "Oh, Mickey, You're So Fine. You're so fine, you blow my mind." That people got sick of hearing Mickey. And her follow-up song that was shopping from A to Z. A, apple. B, banana. I kid you not. Darkwood 777 says, last time I skied was 2017. I miss skiing. Well, get back out there. It's never too late. Frozen Canary, greetings from frozen Asbury Park. Jason Brindamar, I've got rollerblades with the bigger wheels. They're scary fast. I barely use them because I don't know how to stop. Yeah, rollerblades are weird because you can't do the hockey stop, at least not as easily as you can on skates, ice skates. And on rollerblades, you got to drag your heel, or you stick your foot out and you drag drag the tip of your foot, and they'll have a block there for you to do that. But emergency stops are difficult. So that's I think a lot of places, hospital rooms, emergency rooms, summertime, rollerblade injuries are risks from people falling down. Robert Brown says for the Tigers, my favorite's Mark the Bird Fidrich. Yeah, and he passed away a couple years back in a weird accident on his farm. Really nice guy, eccentric, and for 1 year was just on fire, on fire. I remember he brought more excitement to Detroit than the Tigers did when they were in competition for the pennant. Yeah, Matt Atwar says the Three Doors Down guy was 47 years old, and that sounds about right. About 47. MH0862 says there's a Mickey's Diner in St. Paul. Mickey's Diner. Jason Britomar, I wish Radio Shack came back and sold electronic components again. You know what's weird is I went into Radio Shack once. I simply wanted to get a plug that would allow me to take the straight jack that would go into my phone and angle it. So I just wanted an adapter from a straight into an angle. I went into a Radio Shack and walked around for like 10 minutes. Finally, I asked, excuse me. And the guy goes, oh, you wouldn't sell those. I'm like, what do you sell? Well, we sell AT&T cell phones. Yeah, I go to Radio Shack to buy a phone. I don't think so. Squishy X out says, Steve, I love the way you communicate. There are tons of lawyers talking about topics I'm interested in, but you deliver it the best for sure. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. DePaul in Little League had an Al Kaline model fielder's glove. Al Kaline is often considered to be the prototypical Detroit Tiger. He was, I believe, from Baltimore originally, and he got drafted very young, 18, 19 years old, and he came up from the minors very, very quickly and then played his entire career in Detroit, which nowadays doesn't happen. And he was a machine. He was just consistently good. I saw him play a bunch of times. And he was a great guy. Later on, he did commentary on the television, but he was just a great, great guy. Fatty Butterpants says 17,000 people die each year in the U.S. from slips and falls on ice and snow. I was almost one of those last week. Really? 17,000? I would have guessed that many, but okay. And Arts 4014 says that's why Radio Shack went under. They stopped doing what their store was about. Yeah, no, of course. And they'd ask you for your phone number when you bought batteries. Okay. Oliver Wendell Douglas. Hello, Professor Steve. Worked at Radio Shack in the early 90s while in high school. Message cut off there, but of course, Oliver Douglas is from Green Acres. Squishy X out says, and you're the first streaming individual on the internet to ever say my username right. That's hilarious. Okay. Yeah, Two Left Thumbs says ALK line sounds like alkaline in antacid. And I'm sure that's part of the joke, right? Dean Tate, a Dodgers fan since they moved to LA, and Al Kaline was a superstar in his time. Steve G, how long can a shack survive? I've always loved Dress Barn, the name Dress Barn. Do women really want to go shopping in a barn for the dresses? Dress Barn. Dress Outhouse. I mean, come on. You got to think about that, right? DePaul, that's Shake Shack. Arts 4014, I'm considering getting some old hi-fi equipment. The Radio Shack references are amazing as I read up on it. Don't forget they made Tandy stuff. Tandy. I knew somebody who had a Tandy laptop. Yes, a laptop made by Radio Shack or marketed by them. I'm sure somebody else made it for them. Darkwood Pizza Barn. DePaul Psychedelic Shack. Oh. Stephen Burke says Fries did not make it past COVID-19. And Sig226, Tandy Leather. Tandy Leather. I remember that name too. Dan Ritter, I purchased my first cell phone at the Shack. I got my first cell phone at a Best Buy. I wish I still had it. It was such a piece of junk. It's one that had the plastic antenna that you're not really sure if it did anything. Oh, boy. Jason Britomar says Pizza Barn closed in Romulus. Yeah, I understand Pizza Hut is also closing a lot of stores. Shibosuro says, I used to have a Tandy desktop. I guess this little laptops had desktops too, right? Vampire Bear. Marantz. Oh, Pioneer, Marantz. All of those hi-fi names. Squishy X out. What's your most memorable moment in the courtroom? That's tough. I've had a bunch, and I've told stories about most of them at one time or another. Peter Mandix's Pizza Hut is closing hundreds of stores, in particular those that offer inside dining because it doesn't work anymore. Yeah, the Pizza Hut closest to me is just a carryout. And I like Pizza Hut pizza. And I've, if I'm traveling, at least up until a few years ago, there was one in Escanaba. I don't know if it's still there or not. Somebody can look it up for me. Escanaba, ESCA, Escanaba. And I remember stopping in there a couple times getting pizza. I'm on the road. Hey, I'll get Pizza Hut. That sounds good, So there you go. Miko Angel, when did you get your first cell phone? Well, I did have a car phone. I don't think of that as, I know it's a cell phone, but I'm talking about the personal cell phone you carry. I had a car phone in 91, I think, 91 or 92. But I had a cell phone you carry, in about 94 or 95, maybe. Standard deviation, Blaupunkt. I cracked a joke the other day about, I was just talking, and I mentioned Telefunken. And I said, Telefunken's got the greatest name and the coolest logo. And I found out that you can actually still get Telefunken stuff. So I got a t-shirt. I wore it on camera last week. Darkwood 777, the Nokia flip phone. A lot of people don't know Nokia is a Finnish company from Finland, as opposed to, it sounds Japanese, but it's not. Mark Miller says the Yum brand is considering spinning off Pizza Hut. Sean M, yeah, the first cell phone that I carried was about 93 or 94, but it was not a Nokia. I can't remember what brand it was, but it was just an all-purpose dumb phone. And back then, that's all I did is they made phone calls. Yeah, Jillian Shaban, I remember those car phones. So I had a cell phone in my car, and it had something underneath the seat, and then it had a cell phone mounted on, or phone mounted here. And you could just hit it and do speakerphone, or you could pick it up and talk on it. And that was pretty cool. I remember people getting in my car going, ooh, you've got a phone in your car. How quickly that went out of style or no longer became a cool thing. A bag phone, rankled engine. I knew guys who had bag phones. And I always thought that was a bit much because it's basically the same thing I had in my car, but with a battery, I'm guessing, right? Brian Daniels, 2640, you're invited to New York City for pizza. Sig226's Blaupunkt was mentioned in the first RoboCop. Really? I mean, I love that movie. It's allegedly set in Detroit, but I think shot entirely in Texas someplace. Jason Britomar, Pizza Hut was my first legal job back in 1992. So you carry the pizza out on the train. You always say, careful, the pan is hot. And when the waitress walks up with the food and she's putting it down, I go, careful, the pan is hot. And it messed with their heads because they're like, I got to tell the client that, or the customer, but he just said it. And I always go, yeah, careful, the pan is hot. Jolan True, my first cell phone was an AudioVox. Darkwood, Perry Mason had a car phone. I knew a doctor who had a car phone back in the 70s. And I seem to recall it had like a big old, almost like a CB antenna on the roof. I'm not even sure how it worked. But you had to, I think you had to call an operator who connected you or something. I don't know. NZ Kiwi NZ, hello from New Zealand. Thank you for checking in, my friend. Dead Cougar Garage, a quadraphonic Blaupunk. Oh, Sig226 says during the mayor hostage scene at City Hall. Robert Brown first saw a car phone in an episode of Charlie's Angels. Johnny Z. Fradley Alpine cellular phone was $1,200 in 1986. $1,200 in 1986 dollars. That's a lot of money. Daniel Kessler says RoboCop story takes place in New Detroit. Yeah, but I thought the implication was that it was simply a newer version of the old one that had kind of, gone south, so to speak. Oh. DePaul says my 1989 Audi had Blaupunkt stereo. Yeah, I've got an Alpine in my 1999 Viper. Again, don't know if it works. I haven't checked it. Oh, don't forget, standard deviation says that Maxwell Smart had a cell phone in his shoe. And Jethro Bodine tried really hard to put a radio in his shoe. It didn't work out really well as a double knot spy, but he was working on it and improving it. Oh, Lewis Browning says, remember the old car phone antennas that looked like boomerangs? You saw a lot of them on the backs of limousines. Limousines. Yeah, Sig226 is filmed in Houston. I couldn't remember if it was Houston or Dallas where they filmed it, but we're talking about RoboCop and where it was filmed. Limousines. Yeah, Sig226 is filmed in Houston. I couldn't remember if it was Houston or Dallas where they filmed it, but we're talking about RoboCop and where it was filmed. Gerby Thane, have you ever heard of a major car brand canceling or buying back a loan on a car that falls? I mean, I heard a lot of cars being bought back in California, the lemon law, yeah, but I don't handle cases in California. I got friends who do. They file a lot of cases in California, and a lot of cars get bought back. Absolutely. Ted Cougar Garage, I think the year in RoboCop was supposed to be 2011. I was watching a Twilight Zone the other day, and it was supposed to be in the future. It was shot in black and white. It had Jack Klugman as a young man, and they go, and the year is 1984 or something like that. It was something that's so far in the past now, and it's supposed to be in the future. But they have to guess. Lethological gaming was driving and talking on your car phone frowned upon when you had one. Well, my car phone had a hands-free option. But I don't believe there's a law against it at that time. They passed laws about that much, much later. But you got to remember that they could always give you a ticket for distracted driving. And I had somebody roll through a stop sign right in front of the other day who was talking on the phone. And phone's up here and they're talking away and talking. I just rolled through a stop sign. Jerry Dodge's RoboCop was filmed in Dallas. Somebody can just check IMDb and it'll tell you. Maker Mike says the majority of car phones were Motorola, but licensed under different brands, but all of them have vanished. And he knows because he worked in the car audio field in the 80s through 2000. Doesn't surprise me. Peter Mandix, 1517, ever had a repeat lemon law client? That is somebody is unlucky enough to buy two clients. That is somebody is unlucky enough to buy two bad cars in a row. No, but I've represented the same car twice. And I told that story on VinWiki. By the way, I had somebody contact me last week and go, hey, Steve, there's some guy named Ed Bolian, and he's stolen your likeness, and he's creating AI videos of you. And you might want to look into suing him. And I'm like, I've appeared on his channel. That's me. That's not an AI of me. That's actually me talking on his channel. Ed's a friend of mine. Somebody's using AI to imitate you on another channel. Yeah, I don't think that's what's going on there. Bob Bong's checking in from Niles, Michigan. Niles, Michigan. Dead Cougar Garage says, don't forget about Ellie Mae out by the cement pond. Sig226 now says it was Dallas. Oh, boy. Doug Jones asks, do you think lemon cars are due to workmanship at the factory, design, poor parts manufacturing, or lack of knowledgeable dealership techs? They're almost 99% the fault of the manufacturers. It's a combination of cars getting too complicated and not paying enough money for the techs to properly diagnose a car. And I've seen cars where the same thing happens over and over again, and they keep trying the same repair that doesn't work. And it's like, after the second repair attempt, should we try something else? You know? So, Fatty Butterpen says, Steve, your AI likeness needs to see a doctor. Yeah, you'd think if someone's going to steal my likeness, it'd at least make me look better. Oh. Art says you do look younger on Ed's AI channel. That would be true. You know why? Because I shot those videos months ago. LA Detroit says IMDb says Dallas was the filming location. And I would go with IMDb on this. I consider the Internet Movie Database to be an authoritative source. I occasionally I see people arguing about stuff on there, but I think it's pretty good. Free the Birds, hello from Snowden, Fort Wayne. Midas Claw, have you ever seen content from the car YouTuber Aging Wheels? No, it doesn't ring a bell. Sorry. Dan Boyd says now one single bed. Electrical connection can make a car a complete lemon. And worse, there's like 3 or 4 onboard computers that have all got to be working perfectly for the car to run properly. And all it takes is 1 or 2 things to happen wrong, and you can't fix it. Standard deviation, I saw a Viper going down the road, and I thought, damn, someone's imitating Steve Lehto's car. Yeah, I haven't had my Viper out in a little while because it's a bit too cold, a bit too snowy. 2 left thumbs is in the UK. They call lemons Friday afternoon specials. I've heard that saying, and there's a joke or a saying or a wives' tale, whatever you call it, that you never want to buy a car built on a Monday or a Friday. Friday, everybody's drinking and they want to get out of there. Monday, they're hungover. But number one, most people don't even know how to figure out what day of the week their car was built on. And second of all, I don't know anybody ever did any math to prove the correlation there. So Fast Eddie says, what color is the cup? And it does match today. And that's because Mexican Spec is not here. See, that's what I get. I go out of my way to try to. Oh, boy. Daniel Kester says sometimes electrical issues can be difficult to run down. Oh, no, you have no idea. Nowadays, it's not just a matter of finding a short wire. Now it's like, is something wrong in the engine control module or something? Arts 4014 says the turkey vulture is looking down at a red-headed woodpecker on the suet feeder outside my window. I don't know that the turkey vulture could catch that, though. He's eyeballing it, hoping it just drops dead on its own. Because turkey vultures tend to walk up on stuff that's already deceased, like a Norwegian blue. The mechanic told blah, blah, blah that his Buick Park Avenue had 12 computers, and they were refusing to talk to one another. Perhaps they should get counseling. Oh, boy. Ryan makes lights. I'll take an ECU over a carburetor any day. Yeah, until your ECU goes bad. And then it might start getting expensive for you. Doug Jones, how did cars ever work back in the 70s and 80s without all the modules? Making systems that work perfectly now requires running. Well, here's the thing, and I get the point above about you ECU and working properly blows away a carburetor. I mean, the idea of how well they've got stuff figured out. So, for instance, it used to be that the carburetor just you hit the gas and the carburetor just sprayed fuel in, and now they've got fuel injectors that can control exactly how much fuel is sprayed in and when, and they might not spray it in all at the same time. And you realize that, and you go, like, okay, but they can't do that with the carburetor, obviously. So there are some advantages, but again, it's how much is that complexity worth, especially when it comes to having to, repair it. Duncan Campbell, good morning, Steve. What have I missed? About 40 minutes of us talking about random things, which is pretty much any 40 minutes of this show. Matthias, just imagine a car run by Windows. I'm surprised that the car companies didn't actually ask, Microsoft to provide the software. Chip Diesel. I work on Porsches and Mercedes mostly. The Mercedes have so many issues. Had one lose its dash and ability to shift randomly. 5 days later. I've heard so many stories lately about Mercedes. And if you have a defective Mercedes, they'll tell you, just keep bringing it back in. And if you say, I'm thinking about getting the lemon law involved, they'll say, see ya. And they'll cut you loose and treat you like you didn't just spend over $100,000 on one of their cars. So, DePaul 31, you could rebuild a carburetor for $25 back in those days. I know people who've, like, for instance, found a lawn tractor out by the side of the road. And they walk up and the guy goes, hey, if you want it, it's yours, take it. I want the junk man to take it. Bring it home, rebuild the carburetor, it runs fine. Blah, blah, blah. Drive-by wire scares the crap out of me. I could die because a mouse ate a wire. That's the scary part, is that, and it seems that some types of cars have more of the mouse food wires than others. And I've heard, stories about different types of cars having a problem with that, but the mice get in, they chew the wires. And I've never had a problem with squirrels or mice, but I know people who've had, especially leave a vehicle parked outside for a little while. I had my canoe outside a few years ago, and a red squirrel, I know which one it was too, by the way, filled it with walnuts. And I spent the better part of the day emptying it out one time. Yeah, Chuck White had no local mechanic to touch these new cars these days. And that's a problem. It used to be that every gas station had a couple of mechanics at it. You'd pull in and go, hey, my car's running rough. I'll take a look at it. No, not anymore. JFOU812. Are you a notary public? No, I'm not notary public. I heard a lot of lawyers are. I know a few who are. It's no big deal. You basically pay some money. You register yourself. I don't even think there's a test. I think it's just you promise not to do certain things. And you keep track of all the things you notarize. But I know people who are. So if I need stuff notarized, I can get people to do it for me. Yeah, Jerry Dodge's carburetors are still quite common, just not in cars anymore. LA, Detroit, have you driven through my hometown of Highland Park, home of the first assembly line? I hope it's improving. I drove through there a couple of years ago. The guy who comes on here is Johnny Knoxville. Was in Detroit a couple of years ago, and he and I went down to Buddy's Pizza in Detroit. On the way back, we drove through Highland Park, and I showed it to him. And there's the old courthouse across from the old fire station. Building's all boarded up now. All the windows are out of it. And it was just weird because I hadn't been in that building for a long time, but I drove by just to see it. And it's literally entire blocks of buildings that are gutted, burned out, and boarded up. And then like a church's chicken, and a gas station with bulletproof glass like this, so. Sig226 had a rodent chew on a coolant line on a Miata? I've never heard of that. Wow. Daniel Kester remembers days of adjusting lifters while the engine was running. Oh, those are the good old days. Yeah, Chip Diesel says they do make the spicy electrical tape to deter rodents. Haven't used it on a car yet, but I chewed on it and it is actually spicy. Was it mild spicy or medium spicy? Because there's always a debate about that. Arts 4014, I thought being a lawyer makes you a notary by default. No, but it's interesting you say that because we do actually have a special rule, but it cuts both ways when it comes to our own signatures. So if you want to sign an affidavit as a witness in a case, and I submit it to court, I got to get your signature notarized for the affidavit. However, if I sign a document, I don't need to have my signature notarized if I submit it to court myself. However, it also means I'm under all the various penalties of the court rules for signing a document. So it works both ways. Darkwood says you can get peppermint spray to repel mice in cars. I've also seen peppermint spray to get rid of insects. Like if you got ants coming in, you can spray the ground with that stuff. And strangely enough, concentrated peppermint bothers some animals quite a bit. James Milano, hi from Puebla, Mexico. Free the Birds points out that carburetors yell at SUVs. Although they might just yell at cars. Yeah, Arts 4014 is Honda that made biodegradable electric wire harnesses. Squirrels and other rodents love the flavor. I remember seeing articles in Jalopnik and the Autopian about particular makes and models in certain years that had problems. And if you park your car outside, you might not have much choice on that. It's hard to, you can't like seal the engine compartment against mice. Codemeister Beats, an automotive technician, got paid commensurate with their training and efforts. You see more capable technicians. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I saw an article not so long ago where the president and CEO of Ford Motor Company said how many job openings they've got for certified mechanics who are willing to go through all the training necessary to work in one of their dealerships. And it pays really well, but a lot of work involved. So Matthias says there are different kinds of mice. Some are cable chewing and others don't. Well, but you remember that mice are rodents, and rodents generally have the incisors, but they have the teeth that are constantly growing, and they got to chew on stuff to grind them down. So you got your mice, you got your rats, got your beavers, squirrels. I think are rodents. Paul Thomas Harris, I have a snowblower from Aaron's. It uses a computer to control the engine, fuel injection, and a servo with barometer. Why? Don't ask me. Oh, boy. Jason Brennamar says the big game's been on all morning, and I'm still not sure what time the actual game starts. I think it starts around 8-ish. 8-ish. I saw that Green Day is going on at 6, and that's supposedly the opening ceremonies, which I guess they now have opening ceremonies for the Super Bowl. Oliver Douglas, what's the difference between a notary and the gold medallion on legal docs? Nothing. Some notaries simply stamp something and sign it to indicate they've seen it. Some have a seal that they'll do that you couldn't imitate very easily. And if you want it to look really official, you put a gold seal on it, and then you do the seal. And there's some places that'll do that as a matter of practice, other places that don't. I've actually asked a notary, do you have the seals? I want this to look nice. But legally, it makes no difference, at least not in Michigan. Yeah, Miko Angel says guinea pigs and rabbits. Angels don't fall. Says last time my Triumph motorcycle was kicked over, a family of pack rats came flying out of the tailpipe. What? Oh, you mean kicked over? I think like someone kicked it over. What type of Triumph have you got? My brother's got a Bonneville. He's working on another one. I like Triumphs. Code Mr. Beats says the techs at Ford have been making fun of those statements made by the CEO because the salaries are nowhere near what they actually make. So perhaps somebody needs to point that out and realize, gee, maybe we really need to pay these people more to get them in here. It's all supply and demand. If you've got a shortage of workers, despite the fact there's people out there who would like to work, the problem is quite often the pay. Padre, aka Padre, says the game starts at 6 Eastern time. But that's not the kickoff, though, is it? Yeah, 182QK FTW says the barometer is for the air fuel ratio calculations. Of course, but the point is that if you get it set to run right and you're using it on your property, the barometric pressure won't make that big of a difference. Hopefully. Janet K says, I thought the medallion signature put the notary at more risk, so some won't do them. Okay, are you talking about an actual medallion signature for like a financial document? I recently encountered that. And that's not the same as a notary. And the reason I know this, I was talking to somebody who does life insurance. And they said that a notary simply confirms that somebody is who they claim to be. That is, I'm Steve Lehto signing Steve Lehto, and somebody checked my ID and said, yep, that's him. And the medallion signature is, I think, showing that the person not only is who they claim to be, but that the document, I don't know, it's something else. But it's not just a notary. Arts 4014, so only American brands doesn't apply to motorcycles? I don't own one. I've never owned a foreign automobile, nor a foreign motorcycle. Bob Blah Blah says, I can't even afford to pay people under the table anymore. Hey, be glad you've got a table. Oh. Angels Don't Fall to Bonneville. It's been stretched. Okay. Oh, Gianna Case's financial documents. That's why I put notary in quotes. Yeah. I once went to a bank years ago because it was the closest place I could get a notary. And I said, I need something notarized. And I got a manager I didn't know. I'm not sure we do that. I'm like, I'm a client of yours. I've had it done before. He came back out and he goes, it's not a will, is it? I go, no. And he goes, okay, we just don't do wills. I'm like, yeah. Wills aren't notarized either. But anyways. Shiba Saru says a medallion signature guarantee must be completed in person, but that's true of a notary also, because it confirms your identity, signature, and legal authority to transfer securities. So you then theoretically not only show them your ID, but whatever it is, it proves you have the authority to be signing that particular document. I'm assuming that's what you're saying. Papa Roger, is there a model car from your younger days you'd like to see? I like lots of cars from my younger days. A few I'd like to own. LA Detroit, have you heard about the new AI software, the ability to do something? I've heard all kinds of claims about what AI software can and cannot do. I'm not worried about it yet. I actually know a guy who's working on it himself, but MH08, my Dodge was built in Canada and Mexico. Is that still a domestic vehicle? I'm talking about the badges because nowadays, I mean, that changed. I used to joke about my mother's, my father's Ford was built in Canada, and my mom's Honda was built in Ohio. And but we go off badges. LA Detroit, remember back in the 70s and the 80s when they wouldn't let you park a foreign vehicle in a Detroit parking lot? I can take you to one of those lots today. There are still parking lots in Michigan that say no foreign vehicles park, and they point you across the street. Andy, WWE Browns, do you think camera tickets fail service by mail? I do think people unknowingly waive personal jurisdiction arguments by appearing. Your thoughts? Well, it depends on the state, because the state's going to have legislation on that. And if they've passed a law saying first class mail is presumed to be good service, it's tough to beat that. And I understand that first class mail is not, or whatever type of mail they're using, is not guaranteed like it used to be. I mean, nowadays all bets are off. But you could always try to fight it. But the way you'd fight that, unfortunately, you'd have to ignore it, get defaulted, and then try to fight the default. And then what you have is a judge going to say, well, you're here now. And then when you lose that, you take that up on appeal and see what happens. It's a lot of work. Arts 4014, quick, who is on the $100,000 bill? Is that Wilson? I'm just guessing. Doc the Butcher, I'm a wrench in Canton, Michigan. I charge very reasonable prices. Flat rate is all but dead. Yeah, if you find a good mechanic, you cling to them. Johnny Zeese is at that Ford plant in Lorain, Ohio. They had no foreign car signs. Oh, they're still around. I don't know how enforced they are, but they're still around. Cat Giles, why could you not park a foreign car in certain parking lots? In Detroit and Flint, Michigan, two cities with heavy local automotive presences, viewed foreign car companies as the competition. They didn't like it. Johnny Knoxville's in the house. Regards, all. We were talking about you earlier, my friend. Somebody asked if Highland Park is still in rough shape. I said, yeah, last time I was down there with Johnny Knoxville. I showed you the courthouse. You probably forgot. You probably thought he showed me some weird old thing. Miko Angel says Woodrow Wilson is on the $10,000 bill. Okay. I haven't had $100,000 in my wallet for a while, so I don't know. And somebody else says, yeah, Woodrow Wilson. If you guys can't agree on basic things, like, do I have to look that up now? LA Detroit, Wilson is on the bill. Okay. Johnny Knoxville, yeah, I remember that courthouse boarded up. What's sad is it was in rough shape when they were still using it. I'm not making this up. There was a time when you'd go into court with a judge named Judge Bledsoe. I still remember the guy's name. And the courtroom was, like a typical courtroom, but the judge had to enter from the back. So you hear the door open and the bailiff go, all rise, he'd stand up. But he'd come walking through, but there were buckets on the floor because it was raining. The roof was leaking. There were actually buckets of water on the floor. I mean, so there you go. Steve GB1111, we're in the car again, so you can say you love me again. Well, dude, I love you. Of course I love you. Somebody posted on YouTube a picture of their daughter going, I love Steve Lehto. I love Steve Lehto. Padre says Wilson's on the $100,000 bill. So does Andy New York. Daniel Kester says no epilogue in Crazy Town yet. I've addressed this so many times, I've stopped addressing it. I've mentioned this probably in a dozen videos. That in Crazy Town, I was one of 4 or 5 people who were sued in a frivolous lawsuit. And I wanted to go after the woman who signed the frivolous lawsuit because I thought it was silly. I mean, it was beyond silly. And after the lawsuit was resolved, i.e. thrown out of court, I was going to start doing something about it. And at least one of the co-defendants said, Steve, I don't want you to do that. And I said, why not? He goes, I just want this thing to end. It was stupid to go through it. Now you want to revive it? And I'm like, and I couldn't do it by myself. So I thought I had to stop there. Johnny Knoxville says, I was in one of the true crime lives and mentioned you, and one of the others said, hey, I'm a Steve Lehto follower also. Dan Boyd says, the first owner of my house attended Woodrow Wilson's inauguration. It goes way back. Johnny Z. Fradley, there used to be imports. Bumper stickers say, hungry? Eat your import. That's funny. Yeah, Richard Terhune says Wilson's on the $100,000 gold certificate. So, yeah, in the old days, you could walk that thing into a bank. I won $100,000 in gold. Oh. Dr. Siegel, are we ever getting a video setup tour? I've done a couple of them. Every time I do one, people say I miss stuff. There's just too much junk back there. I would love to know the thought process on where you hide Ben. There's no thought process to it. I just try to put it someplace and move it around and mix it up. And I'm always amazed that I can just have the little corner sticking out. People immediately spot it. Doug Jones, when there are buckets catching rain in your courthouse, you know you've reached the peak of your profession. However, you should actually understand that the opposite of what you're saying is true. When you walk into a courthouse with buckets on the floor and a leaky ceiling, and the judge has to walk in from the hallway because they're too lazy to give him his own chambers, understand that orders of that court are just as useful as orders from any other court, because it doesn't matter whether or not the roof leaks. It matters whether or not the judge agrees with you. Johnny Knox would like to see me on the $2 bill. I'd like to be on the $3 bill. Oh, Gold by Spandau Ballet. It's a great song. Believe in yourself. Johnny Knox, I'm seeing businesses with penny shortage signs. Not a good sign. Well, the sad part is that half the places I go to just round it up or down, and the other half still give you pennies. And so I'll admit I'm hoarding pennies. I'm not spending pennies. I'm just keeping them all. I throw them in a jar. It's like pieces of April, right? H.C. Helfman, or it could be H. Chelfman, says, or it could be H.C.H. Elfman, like Danny Elfman. Popular YouTube police auditor mentioned that he follows you. Cool. Thank you. I appreciate that. Lewis Browning says you could tape the bill to your t-shirt. I've had it in my pocket one time, and I forgot. I should have kept better track of these things. I still have the video, but it's not on the channel anymore, where I had somebody behind the camera with a fishing rod and just danced the $100 bill behind me a couple times during the videos if nothing was happening. Johnny Knoxville is listening to Depeche Mode house mixes in the background. Early stuff or late stuff? Construction Time Again, one of my favorite albums. Speak and Spell. Don't get me wrong, the later stuff was pretty good, but they'd gone so commercial. MHOH says they used to carry Susan B. Anthony dollars to give as change to the customers who were a pain in the rear end. I recently got a sack of Joea, and it's kind of like, I mean, that's an idea that never really took off. Don't get me wrong, silver dollars are cool, but nowadays the clad ones or the sack of Joeas are no. Oh, Daniel Kester says in the 1890s there was a $3 in circulation. Yeah, there was a $3 coin. There was a $1 coin, a $2 coin, a $2.50 coin, and a 3. But the 3 was not common. But there was also a 1 cent, 2 cent, and 3 cents. And interestingly, the 3 cents are both available as nickels or out of nickel or out of silver. They call the silver ones a trime. Johnny Knoxville throws loose change in a glass milk jug. I throw mine in it's the big thing you get of peanut M&Ms like at Costco. Not quite a gallon, but it's big. And I throw my change in there. Chuck Whitehead, will a court hold you accountable if you can't make it to court and your streets are bad? I've got stories about that, but generally speaking, with cell phones now, you call the court and say, hey, look, I'm running late. I'm sorry. I'm going to get there as soon as I can. Courts should be cool about that. But judges are people too. There's good ones, there's bad ones, there's crazy ones. So, drinking some of the old Gatorade here, my friends. Jillian Shaban says they don't have the horses in Meyer by me. They take them down? Last time I was in a Meyer, which was about 3 days ago, I saw the horse. Pretty sure. So, of course, they could just up it to a nickel and say, hey, look, with inflation, we're still a great deal. I've never seen a kid on it, you know. Codemeister Beats keeps the pre-zinc pennies. That's the ones pre-1982. They're worth at least 3 cents in copper. When you're metal detecting, the older coppers ring better. They sound better on the detector. Yeah, SIG 226, Eisenhower dollars could double as a dinner plate. Bill McMahon, 2211, says, hello from Mounds View, Minnesota. I saved my change in a plastic piggy bank. Belio and Jillian both noticed that my cup does indeed match my shirt. Thank you for noticing. Lewis Browning, did you get a t-shirt? I got 5 this past week. At least 5. I wore one in the video I shot this morning. It'll be up tomorrow. Blah, blah, blah. I made it to court during a blizzard once, along with maybe a dozen other people, and the judge dismissed all of our cases because the police didn't show up. And that's an example where I can picture a judge going, hey, you guys made the effort, and the cops didn't. They get to run stop signs. They can speed. They're not here? I would dismiss them all too. Congratulations. Dan Boyd says, what horse, Meyer? Jason Brindamar says, I see kids on Sandy, the horse, all the time. Okay. Daniel Kester, I try to keep wheat pennies. I got a wheat penny in my change 2 days ago. I hang on to those also. Those are just cool. NZ Kiwi, we no longer have 1 and 2 cents, and $1 and $2 are all gone out of circulation. You mean the paper? Do you have $1 and $2 coins or no? The Michael Myers says, my wife told me of a time when a judge issued a bench warrant for a defendant, not understanding he was locked up in another county. But the question is, he may have been doing that also just to guarantee that they didn't let him out. In other words, he's required to be here. He's being held over there. We don't want him getting out and running away. So you issue the bench warrant, you serve it on the other jail, so when they release him, they send him to your court. That's a possibility. Johnny Knoxville, when I was in grade school, my best friend's family had one of those massive water cooler jugs in the living room that everyone put their change in. My brother did that also. The Abso Pure, the big, I don't know how many gallons those things are. And he knew, I think it's $400 if it was filled with pennies. Maybe more than that. But I remember because he actually had a bank where they would take in loose change. They had a machine that would count it. As long as you deposited it, they would do that for you for free, like a Coinstar. And he would do that and fill it up and lug that thing into the bank. Yeah, Wilson, 93, 97, Eddie Bauer shirt, they're going bankrupt. The question is whether they're going bankrupt or just closing all their stores. Articles have conflicted on that. Blah, blah. So, Steve, what you're saying is you still use cash to buy things. Yes, in fact, I did a video recently where I mentioned again that I also use checks occasionally. And people get all bent out of shape. 116-3562. I got a 1950 dime a few days ago or years ago, worth like $7. That's the amazing thing about the price of silver right now. Of course, is you can't get anyone to pay you that. If you go to a silver dealer, they go, yeah, $7. But you go, I want to sell this to you. They go, oh, $4. LA Detroit have 5 of the wartime tin pennies. I believe they're actually, they call them steel pennies, don't they? They rust badly in certain circumstances. Yeah, NZ says the 1 and 2 are now coins. So they got $1 and $2 coins, but no $1 and $2 bills. Arts 4014, speaking of coin sizes, the $5 gold is the same size as a nickel. Looks bigger and definitely heavier. And a lot of them also have it where the impression is put in as opposed to out. I love the Indian design in those old coins. And yeah, they're heavy. And it's remarkable. You see a $1 gold coin, it's like the size of your pinky fingernail. They're very small. Grumpy's Customs finally caught alive. Grumpy's Customs in Pound, Virginia, watching. Well, thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. Yeah, Johnny Knoxville, banks are charging to cash in coins now. Many don't cash in the coins, forcing you to use the Coinstar machines. Chase Bank won't take my change without charging me. It's so sad. You think that your own bank would take care of you, you know? Belios is Coinstar. If you put all the money on an Amazon gift card, they won't charge you a fee. I've heard there's different ways around that. And I always like how they go, do you want to give all the money to charity? Yeah, that's why I'm here. 116-3562 got that silver diamond as change a few weeks ago. Yeah, Rody Z 82 for 1943 Steelies. Darkwood 777 says my bank will take pre-rolled change. So you can sit down there and roll the quarters yourself, right? I actually dig through my thing once in a while to get the quarters for the car wash. Yeah, Mark Miller writes a check just to save on the convenience fee that he'd be charged otherwise by his HOA. Now, Bill says Coinstar stopped issuing the Amazon cards. Fatty Butterpants, does your metal detector distinguish between metals, i.e., gold, silver, and steel? Yes. Now, it's not an exact science, but if I had 20 coins on the table here and they're all different, and I turned my back and said, pick one up, put it in your hand like this, and I can sweep my detector over it, I can tell you which coin you had in your hand because it's that good. But where you start getting into trouble is in highly mineralized ground, and a lot of times there's more than one thing in the ground near it. But I can spot by the sound my detector makes good signals, and you, especially silver dimes and silver quarters, it's like music. It really is. Johnny Knoxville 15F in Bad X, Michigan right now. Mostly cloudy. STP World, are you ready for the 800th Simpson episode? Yeah, you know, I actually stopped watching the new episodes a couple years back. To me, they hit their peak right around season 10 through about season 15 or 20. And now it's clearly being written by people who grew up watching it. And so it seems very, very like recycled or like self-referential. And to me, it's not as clever as it used to be. And it's kind of like watching Saturday Night Live now, knowing that the people who are writing for it grew up watching it. And it changes it, you know? Ronan Cotter. Hello, all. Greetings and happy Sunday. Johnny Z. Bradley still has a 4 quarters to start car wash near him. Yeah, I've got a quarter car wash near me. I got a couple of them. And, if my Jeep is all muddy, I'll take it in there. And I don't want to spray too much on the windows and the doors. I just want to get the metal parts underneath it, So I'll do that by hand myself. Sean M. Do they still make the dollar coin? Oh, absolutely. STP World, I did get to talk to Al Jean. He followed me back. Really nice guy. Yeah, Al Jean's one of the original people behind The Simpsons. Yeah, Johnny Knoxville, did you see the story of the cybersecurity guys who got arrested in Iowa despite having documentation of being hired by the state in a penetration test? Yes, and I actually know a guy whose son does that kind of work. And he's hired to go in and try to break into systems, and he's carrying on him the documentation that says, if you encounter this person before you do, before calling the police, call the CEO of the company. And he's had some close calls, but that one's a little crazier. Belio says there'll never be another Bass-O-Matic commercial like season 1 Saturday Night Live. It was so obvious in the first season or two of SNL that they were doing stuff. You could tell that like half the people in the writing room were probably like, "That's crazy. We can't do that." The other half were like, "Oh, it's the funniest thing ever." And some of it was weird, but it was. I'd rather see stuff that's hilarious and weird versus trying to be funny but failing. And I don't know. Oh yeah, the Coneheads. Dirk Ramaswinkel. Darkwood 777 to find the coin hunters who get boxes of coins from the bank to search for silver. An interesting hobby. Yeah, those guys will roll hunting. They'll go to the bank and get rolls of coins because some people will foolishly put a silver coin in a roll, Rhodey's 824, some of the most beautiful U.S. 1 cents were the early 1800s. Yeah, back when there were large cents, really, really large. I've found some of them with my metal detector. Very cool. I think they're neat coins. Romark, were you an SCTV fan growing up? I remember seeing SCTV. I was not as big of a fan, but I know that many of the people from there went on to do great things. Marjan K. Cavusi, are you excited about the Super Bowl? Absolutely not. Literally, I don't even know who's playing. I think Seattle's in it, but I'm not sure who they're playing. Doug Jones, Norm Macdonald on Weekend Update. Norm Macdonald is he passed away. He's one of the funniest comedians who's ever lived. And you have to understand something. Norm Macdonald is famous for making people laugh, not just by telling jokes, but also by doing things that when you thought about them were very, very funny. And so, for instance, he would tell these jokes about how, they talk about somebody who, bravely put up a fight and they beat cancer. Um, but if or they lost their fight to cancer. And so cancer killed them. But then again, cancer died too. So cancer didn't win. And he was cracking all these jokes about cancer. People are like, dude, that's so tasteless. You can't crack cancer jokes. And Norm Macdonald's like just ignoring the criticism. The entire time he had cancer. He had cancer. And he was doing a setup for a really, really long joke. He knew that he had cancer. He was cracking cancer jokes. And when people would say you can't do that, he would just pretend like, knowing darn well that after he passed of cancer, people are going to go, oh my God, that's funny. The guy's making us laugh from beyond the grave. Rhodey Z, Eddie Murphy doing buckwheat songs. He also did Little Richard Simmons, which is Little Richard doing exercise videos, and he's singing songs while he's doing aerobics. And he had the song "Good Golly, Miss Molly, You Sure Are a Hog. You better start running because it's too late to jog." What was it, 40 years ago? I still remember that. Like that. Johnny Knoxville, the early 90s SNL was the best. They came and went. There was good seasons and bad seasons. There was some years where I'm like, this isn't even funny. Yeah, Johnny Knoxville, Eddie Murphy, and Mr. Landlord. Gumby, damn it. Standard deviation. Oh. Yeah, Arts 4014 Norm's OJ Simpson stuff was amazing. And we've talked about this before. He got fired because one of the guys at NBC was a good friend of OJ Simpson's. And they had warned him, like, there are people, Don Olmeyer, who don't think it's funny that you're ripping on OJ Simpson every single week. Norm didn't care. He's kept ripping on him. So then finally they fired him. And he's just doing other stuff. And then they invited him back to host. And during his opening monologue, he goes, they fired me because they said I wasn't funny. Now here I am a couple years later and I'm hosting. And I assure you, I haven't gotten funnier. Marine Elver, you should go ahead and put on the robe. You have survived long enough to become the Sith Lord. Is that a Star Wars reference? I don't know. Sorry. Senor Siesta, hey Steve, love the show. What motivated you to pursue law? It's kind of complicated, but I had a very good friend who's going to law school, and he and I used to have these long discussions about what he was learning. And one day he goes, "Why aren't you going to law school?" And I said, "I don't know." And I've always been fascinated by legal stuff and history and the law, and got into it. And it turns out not only that, but I can also talk to people all day long about cars. So it worked out for me. Yeah, Joel on True, constant OJ jokes. My favorite, and there's many of them, but my favorite one was the one where he said that OJ Simpson has vowed that he will not rest until he finds the true killer. And then he put up on the screen a picture of OJ Simpson golfing. The search continues. Randall Green, you should have been a judge. Your courtroom would be hilarious. Unfortunately, you got to dial it down a little bit. I know some judges who don't care, but you got to dial it down a little bit. You don't want to be like that judge down south who thought he was Elvis Presley. Another story altogether. Johnny Knoxville, did you hear that Savannah Guthrie got the highest score on the bar in Arizona? I've not heard that. I'm not even sure if I've never heard of anybody releasing results like that, like they do in like law school. In law school, they'd routinely post grades, and they wouldn't say who's which number, but they say here's all the grades on a particular test, and you could find your number and figure out where you were on the list. And then they would also tell you where you ranked in the class and you graduated, but I don't know. Dan Boyd, remember Fridays? It's kind of funny. At the time, Fridays seemed like such a hack job of just copying Saturday Night Live. But it had some bright moments. And that, of course, is where Kramer got started. And they had some great musical guests also. But that didn't last quite so long. Lewis Browning, Norm MacDonald. Hey, that's my lucky stabbing knife. Oh boy. Um, Arts 44 Jesus Norm was a great guest on Conan. The problem with Conan, and again, I know people like him, but Conan would interrupt Norm telling jokes. Norm's in the middle of a joke, and Conan would ask him a question, and I'm like, "Dude, shut up! The guy's a master. Let him go." 65 is not elderly. In living color was a lot funnier than SNL. Go on there and find the Jim Carrey skit where he's imitating Vanilla Ice. That's when you realize that Jim Carrey is going to be a gigantic star. Ice, ice, baby. Real Beer Bauer says some judges are appointed, not elected. It depends on which system you're talking about. Federal judges are, in fact, appointed. And in Michigan, state judges are elected. And so it depends on where you are. And then you should also know that if a vacancy occurs before an election, like a judge steps down or dies, they will appoint somebody to replace them until the next election. Vampire Bear Devo on Fridays was excellent. Weren't they also on Saturday Night Live, though? I could have sworn they were. DePaul says Howard Stern's Channel 9 TV show used to beat Saturday Night Live in the ratings in the New York market. Yeah, primarily because all of his radio listeners would watch. I liked watching Gilbert Gottfried when he was making fun of Andrew Dice Clay. He's chain smoking, wearing one of those jackets, being an idiot. Oh. Mitch Lake talking about comedy. Hogan's Heroes and Green Acres, in my opinion, were so well written, and Beverly Hillbillies also. I've watched Green Acres recently, although they recently took it off the channel. It's either Me TV or Cozy TV. I always forget which. Green Acres was on. Beverly Hillbillies is on too, and I watched all of them several times through. Very, very well written. Some people have just not seen it in so long. Hogan's Heroes. It's it's a bit strange to watch, but some of Hogan. I mean, some of it is just. Dan Boyd didn't realize that Michael Richards was on Fridays. I'd completely forgotten that, and then I was watching some Friday reruns on, I think on YouTube. Daniel Kester finds Jim Carrey to be silly, not so much funny. But watch the skit where he comes out and sings like Vanilla Ice. It's funny. It's very funny. Sig226 says, didn't Michael Richards have a problem with Andy Kaufman on Fridays? Hard to say because Andy Kaufman, a lot of the stuff he did was fake. And a lot of it was not real, or the stuff that was supposedly not real. And it was unclear. And I know that some people found it very, very funny, but some of it was just weird. Belio, Devo was definitely on SNL. So the question is, were they also on Fridays? Wouldn't surprise me. Silent Hangus has Lake Erie completely frozen over yet. I have to imagine in the shallow spots, it probably does freeze. It's a question of how deep in it goes. Dan Boyd says Jerry Lawler had a problem with Andy Kaufman. I'm trying to remember, though, if that was the one that was supposed to be real but was staged. Because at least one of the things that he had done later came out that it was fake. But I never found him funny. So to me, it's like arguing about, Marjan, I'm glad you are an attorney who is a consumer advocate. I hope you continue teaching law. Well, I do what I can. Thank you. Melanie Chartoff, the Michael Myers, said I had a crush on her when Fridays was on the air. Yeah, she was cute. I remember her. The name, like as soon as you said the name, I could picture her. John Falkowski, I hope you continue with your live chat. I can't stop chuckling. Well, thank you. MH08, Hogan's Heroes can't stand bass clarinets, but the opening music, especially with that snare, is so good. It sounds very military-ish, you know? Daniel Kester says on the Beverly Hillbillies, Granny did all of her own stunts. Well, you know, at her age, a fall from 60 feet, that could lay her up for a day. Johnny Knoxville, I remember all the pollution jokes about Lake Erie as a kid. Yeah, Lake Erie and the river down there. And I once mentioned a problem with the river. I avoid it now like the plague. And I had a guy who was a local down there just send me the nastiest email about how that river's never caught on fire. What are you talking about? And if you go to the website for the History Society, they got photographs of it burning, and it talks about how they became famous because the river caught on fire. I'm like, dude, don't yell at me. Yell at your own historical society for saying it happened. And by the way, it did happen. Oh, boy. Paul Thomas says, I loved watching MASH. You know, MASH, I have a love-hate relationship with MASH. We talked about this before. First couple seasons were really good, and then it started going really downhill. It became very Alan Alda-centric. I didn't really care for Colonel Potter, Charles Winchester. They were trying so hard to bring in characters, and I almost said a bad word there. People forget that in the first season of MASH, Radar was not innocent. He was a scrounger who would pull scams and stuff. And somebody said, maybe we should give him a teddy bear and have him be like a child. And it just, I don't know. M. Takala, 82, get a coffee and read my email from last week. Thanks to the streams. Hey, while I've got you here, I was just thinking about you a minute ago. You're the one who asked about the iron industry in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, but you mentioned Crystal Falls. I was not that aware of anything happening in Crystal Falls with mining, but apparently there was. What you need to know is that there is a Finnish-American archive in Hancock, Michigan, and you can find them by Googling Finnish-American Heritage Center Archive, Hancock, Michigan, and you will find a ton of finding aids of things they have there, and they have all the information that they can get about Finns who came to the area and why they were there. And so a person there, possibly an archivist, would be happy to help you, but please check them out. I meant to send you a note with that information, but it's the Finnish American Heritage Center, FAHC, in Hancock, Michigan. Check them out. Yeah, DePaul points out the Cuyahoga River in Cleveland did catch on fire, and so did Vampire Bear, and so did other people. And like I said, I got an angry email from a guy that said, no, it didn't. No, it didn't. Why? All that's happening is people like you just keep repeating this old wives' tale. Johnny Knoxville says, when I think of MASH, I think it's 2 a.m. Time to turn the TV off. MASH has been in reruns since about the 1970s. I mean, it's always been on. And they did so many seasons they can do that. Daniel Kester says, in real life, Granny from Beverly Hillbillies was 65 years old when she started that character. Yeah, she just did a great job. I mean, she's one of those people. It's almost impossible to imagine her as anything other than her character. And likewise, Jed, and I believe Jed Clampett is in Breakfast at Tiffany's. And you see him talking to somebody, you're like, hey, it's Jed Clampett. So, yeah, the Michael Myers says MASH, the movie and the book were good, but after Frank Burns left, the show went downhill. Frank Burns was one of the greatest characters ever created. Absolutely. Absolutely great. Mitch Lake says that the first roadside park in Michigan was in Crystal Falls. Really? I mean, I believe you, but I would have thought it'd be like an I-75 someplace. Of course, I-75 wasn't probably there at the time. Standard deviation, is Bob Crane's murder still unsolved? I think it's one of those ones where they think they know who did it, but they had a trial and he wasn't found guilty, so they kind of like dropped it there. Mitch Lakes has contacted Jim Curdy at the Finnish American Heritage Center. Although Jim Curdy's retired now, so he might not be there, but somebody will be there. Mitch is a good friend, by the way. I would assume it's you, Mitch P. Lake, right? Now a curmudgeon says, I watched this. You loved the last line. Of course, it's the best line of the whole movie. But you got to see Sisu too, because he talks even less. And that's not ruining anything for you, trust me. You won't even notice. You got used to him in the first episode, the first movie. Logan Gray got to meet David Ogden Stiers, Charles Winchester, when he was in a dinner theater show in Edmonton. Wow. Daniel Kester says MASH had 11 seasons. I thought it went more than that, but that doesn't surprise me. Darkwoods, anyone who's ever been in the Army knows of Frank Burns. And I assume he's specifically an officer who appears to be a rank or two above where he should be. And you're wondering why he's even there. It doesn't seem to get it. Standard deviation says, why did Buddy Ebsen dislike Nancy Culp? Miss Jane, I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me. I've never heard that, but I'm not a big fan of them. I mean, I've seen all the shows, but I never followed the gossip behind the scenes, but wouldn't surprise me. So, Mitch Lake, you remembered. So for those of you who don't know, Mitch Lake is a good friend of mine. I've mentioned him probably before once or twice here. We hang out. But Mitch worked in radio for a long time at a radio station in Hancock, Michigan, WMPL. And he was the morning man there for quite some time. And he recently retired. And Mitch and I met because I wrote a book about the Italian Hall disaster. And I was up there doing book signings and speaking tours and going around and stuff. And I remember I came by the radio station and Mitch said, come on in, I'll have you on the air. And we sat and talked about the Italian Hall disaster on the air there at WMPL Hancock. And just stayed in touch. And I remember a couple of times I'm passing through town. I'm like, hey, wait, Mitch is on the air. And I pull over and just walk in, get his attention through the window. And during a commercial break, go in and say hi. So Mitch, having worked in Hancock, was literally about a half a mile down the street from the Finnish American Heritage Center I'm talking about, where Jim Curdy used to run the place, although he recently retired. So Bob blah blah from watching the clips of Sisu, it reminds me a lot of Mad Max. Bob sent me a note and said, Steve, check it out. There's a bunch of clips from Sisu 2 on YouTube. And I watched one of them, and I've seen the movie. I saw it at the theater. And it just can't help but bring a smile to your face. Oh, boy. Yeah, Lewis Browning says in Breakfast at Tiffany's, Doc Go Lightly was played by Buddy Ebsen. So you recall that you know, the young lady, Holly Golightly, was actually, she was actually married, right? But that was a little known fact. Jess White, in your opinion, is public space different than public access, such as Walmart parking lot, church, or park? In what regards? You mean for traffic laws or for privacy? Two totally different things. Tyler Pasquale, hey Steve, have you seen my email about the Iwo Jima sand jar set loaner? Well, I don't know about an email unless you sent it a while ago, but the jar is on my set. It's right back there. If not, send it again. Oh, Belio, Buddy Epson did a commercial after the show opposing Nancy Culp running for political office. She was too liberal for him and she never forgave him. That would be a little odd to get one of your coworkers to cut a commercial for you. Oh. MHOH says, I noticed all the old TV series had 26 episodes per season. And I'm wondering, I always wondered if that was so that they could do the first run and then do the reruns and then, once a week and then next year start again. I don't know. I mean, it seems like it's an interesting possibility. Mitch Lake, are the complete shows archived of the Ghoul? I don't know. The Ghoul had an interesting history in Detroit because he was on like WXON Channel 20, and then he's out of Toledo for a while, and huge cult following. Sig226 says Matt Dillon's character killed 407 people during the airing of Gunsmoke, 7 of whom were women. Wow. I assume you mean the actor, not the character, not the actual guy, right? Arts 4014 says it's worth your time seeing the fat electrician's take on the Finnish soldier Aimo Koivunen. I've never heard of anything in that sentence other than it's worth your time seeing. I'm not sure who the fat electrician is, nor who Aimo Koivunen is. Ian Gotti, Audrey Hepburn. Yeah, she played Holly Golightly. Steve Kelleher says some earlier shows had 38 episodes per season. Yeah, there was a time when they used to crank the shows out, and then the number kept dropping and dropping and dropping. Vampire Bear 13 says the Ghoul was on WUAB in Cleveland at one time. Bill Thomas, I heard Perry Mason once lost a case, but he did it on purpose. That I would not know. It's been so long since I watched those regularly. Freebirds asked the question, everybody wonders, is the Ghoul like Svengoolie? And there are a bunch of different people doing Ghoul-like things. And I know Svengoolie on one channel, and he's been around for a long time. But my understanding is that the Ghoul we're talking about in Michigan, had studied underneath somebody else who was doing it and got their permission to do it, but don't know. Tigerman99515 says Finns don't dominate winter sports like their Scandinavian neighbors do. It depends. They're usually pretty good in ice hockey, although I saw them get beaten quite soundly by the U.S. team in women's. So Signata, was that the infamous World War II Finnish sniper? No, that's Simo Heha. Simo. Silent Hangus, do people out boating around on Lake St. Clair need a passport? I've never heard of a person encountering that, but you might encounter people, depending on how close you go to the border, from Border Patrol or, the equivalent from Canada. Johnny Z said Cleveland first had Ghoulardi, then afterwards the Ghoul. And I believe that the Ghoul and Ghoulardi knew each other. So it's not like you ripped the guy off or anything like that. Belio and Breakfast at Tiffany's, was Mickey Rooney funny or bad? Yeah, that's a character choice that did not age well. I saw that movie about in the last few months. Idris Taylor says the fat electrician is a respected history YouTuber and the sniper is known as the White Death. Well, that was one of his nicknames. Of course, that's his nickname in English. I read books on the guy. Vampire Bears says Perry Mason's Lost Case was a two-parter and was the only episode in color to end the series. I do not remember seeing that. Wow. Yeah, Mitch Lake says the ghoul succeeded Ghoulardi with his permission. That's what very, very vague back there. Very, 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 very vague. Oh, Sarah McCasland. I love the free education to give your audience teaching terms and correct description words and then give a definition. I try. And then people go, oh, why do you keep repeating yourself? I knew what that word meant. You didn't need to tell us that. Oh, boy. Yeah, the Night Stalker had a whole lot of ghouls, John Falkowski, and Padre also mentions Kolchak, the Night Stalker. I remember that show out there. So, and I mean, I also like Mystery Science Theater. I like the ones with Mike Nelson the best, but I like This Island Earth. The theater one they did is just stellar. It's stellar. Mitch Lake, have you seen the video of the guy who scaled the Penobscot building downtown? No. To the top of the ball. WJLB radio used to be in the Penobscot building. Don't know if you know that, Mitch. But WJLB was a what we call an urban station. Very, very cool old Art Deco building downtown Detroit. One of the taller buildings down there. And somebody scaling that. Have not seen that. Bill Thomas, I like Bill Bixby more than My Favorite Martian than the Hulk. My Favorite Martian. Oh, there's some weird shows back then. Hi-Fi Andrew says MST3K is the best. That's Mystery Science Theater 3000. Watch Santa Claus Conquers the Martians every Christmas. With a very young Pia Zadora as a child actress in one of the worst movies ever made. It's horrible. It's horrible. And it's weird because there's some bad movies that were clearly made to be bad. And those aren't as fun as the ones where you know somebody actually thought this movie will do it. And it doesn't do it. MH08, what was the show with Bill Bixby? Courtship of Eddie's Father? I'm guessing. 182QKFTW. Have a good day, Steve and chat. I'm going to try to be productive. Yeah, we've already wasted a good chunk of your day. Mr. Ed the Talking Horse. Chris Pedesa. Oh, boy. Vinny Sluga, did you watch the 4th season of The Lincoln Lawyer? I haven't watched any of The Lincoln Lawyer. I saw the movie, and I didn't really care for it. I'm like, eh. Darkwood 777 says Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. The Santa actor put a lot into his role. Oh, boy. Miko Angel, have y'all seen Hudson Hawk? I've not seen that. I've heard unkind things about it. Yeah, Belio Ray Walston was so great in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Mr. Hand. I just read the book The Uncool by Cameron Crowe. And he, among other things, wrote the screenplay for Fast Times at Ridgemont High because it's based upon a book that he wrote himself. and he's talking all about the casting of it and being on set when Jeff Spicoli told Mr. Hand to do something impolite. Yeah, Daniel Kester, Bill Bixby is also in The Magician. The Magician. And I forgot, did he solve crimes with magic? Oh, is he a detective? I can't remember. Andy New York's Manos, The Hands of Fate. That's a classically bad movie. It is. It's one of the worst. It's poorly shot. It doesn't make any sense. It's like somebody's got a hold of a couple rolls of film and exposed them and then strung them together. But Johnny Knoxville, yeah, Cameron Crowe did singles as well. He also did Almost Famous and Jerry Maguire and Say Anything, bunch of others. But the best part of his book is he talks about when he was a teenager. He graduated high school at like 14 or something, and he got a job writing for, among other people, Rolling Stone. And so he's interviewing the Allman Brothers, and he's 16 years old. He's living like literally traveling with them on the road. He saw a lot of things. Kingfish Stevens, Plan 9 from Outer Space. Yeah, they did that movie also on Mystery Science Theater, and it's bad. I mean, it's a weak movie. It's really bad. But I mean, it's one of those movies where you can kind of figure out what's supposed to be happening, but you got to put a lot of thought into it. Oh. Yeah, Belios' Fast Times. Don't forget about Phoebe Cates and the pool scene. The pool scene. George 8 Bitsworth. Do you edit your own videos? Yes, I do. I shoot them on a camera that's right over my shoulder back there. I guess be over there, right? Yeah. It's so hard to do that backwards. And then I edit them, and I still use Adobe Premiere. I get grief about it, but I still do. So, Daniel Kester, The Magician, only had 11 episodes. Johnny Z. Fradley, yeah, Almost Famous. Johnny Knoxville says, I went to LA in 2011 for New Year's. I went to Ridgemont High, which is actually Van Nuys High School. The running track is still dirt 45 years later. And the funny thing about that is that he kind of burned out doing the interviews. And he says this, he wanted to quit and do something different. And he came up with the idea about basically attending high school as an adult, as an observer, but he still looked young. And he talked somebody at that high school into letting him attend the school for a year and pretend to be a student. And he wrote a book called Fast Times at Ridgemont High based on that. And then they turned that into a movie. I didn't know the book existed. So Darkwood, do you have any musical talent? Zero, none at all. I like music. I love going to see live shows. I appreciate people who've got musical talent, but none, absolutely none. Yeah, Johnny Knoxville, is that one of those toy safes on the shelf behind you with the red dial? Yes, yes. I got that at a flea market. I think it was last summer. Like $10, $15, something like that. There's nothing in it. Fast Eddie, can you play the cowbell? I couldn't even do that. I'd hurt myself. I'd get kicked off the stage. Schreiber, do you like Weird Al? Oh, yeah, of course. I think Weird Al's a genius. Absolute genius. And he's a very intelligent guy, too. Yeah, the cowbell skit off of Saturday Night Live is one of the greatest things they've ever done. It is just... I'm Bruce Dickerson. Yes, the Bruce Dickerson. Tigerman 99515. Any of your brothers have their original hi-fi equipment? No. I got a couple of brothers who are musical, though. In fact, one of my brothers plays in a band quite a bit. Oh, by the way, I've got to mention this. I mentioned it at the top, and I'll mention it again right now. On Thursday of this week, that would be the 12th. Okay, Thursday the 12th. I'm speaking at the Stahl Museum, Stahl, in the evening. And if you're in the area, I would urge you to Google Stahl Museum, find their website, look for events. It'll say upcoming on the 12th, Thursday. Steve Lehto is coming in to talk about the Chrysler Turbine Car. And I got a PowerPoint presentation, which actually it's just over there, right out of reach. But a PowerPoint presentation, which is like a glorified slideshow with a whole bunch of photographs that are not in my book. And I will talk for a good 45 minutes or so, and then take questions from the audience. And they have a running Chrysler Turbine Car, and the car will be there. And there's a chance they might fire it up. So they fire up the Turbine Car, you can actually see one run. I don't think they'll drive it or anything. And I'm not kidding you. I just had a turkey fly through my field of vision right above the bushes over there. So somebody asked earlier, are there any animals to report on? Yes. There's at least one turkey out there right now. So Johnny Knoxville, no, Jay Leno is not going to be there. Johnny Z. Fraley, Stahl like the chainsaw, that's steel. That's Stihl. Oh, and by the way, they've got a really cool museum. They've got a really cool museum, and they've got a ton of their stuff on display. It's a very, very large facility. So they've got so much cool stuff there. Check the website out, and you'll see what they've got there. But if you're in southeastern Michigan, try to make it. If you follow me here, watch me, come on up and shake my hand, say hello. Yeah, Johnny Knoxville says the irony of those toy safes, many of them say Fort Knox on them. Because, of course, I don't know if that one does or not, but Fort Knox is synonymous with a safe place to put your money. Not that you can put your money there. Kingfish Stevens says Stahls has the best Tucker known to exist. There are a few that can make that argument. But you're splitting hairs if you really want to get into it, because there's probably 5 or 10 that are really, really nice. Dr. Chernicki says Ray Walston was my mother's sister's husband's brother. So your mother's sister's husband. I'm not sure that's mathematically possible. Dr. Rick, I know you're signing out soon. Just wanted to thank you for relaxing, entertaining, and educational show. Can't say it's terribly educational, but we try to have some fun. Darkwood 777 was a Chrysler Turbine Car only made in one color. No, they made one in white, 54 in bronze, one in white. And in fact, one of the pictures in my PowerPoint presentation is of the white Turbine Car up on a lift and a bunch of people pointing at it and talking about it. So, Arts 4014, do they have a Zoom option for your talk? No. I've been thinking about taping it, but I don't know. I always feel bad because when I start recording it, then I start getting self-conscious, and I worry I'm not doing the best thing I could do. And Lewis Browning points out that technically it's Stahl's Motors and Music Experience, Michigan's destination where automotive history comes. They've got a bunch of collections of musical stuff there that are mind-blowing. They've got this one thing, it's up against one wall, and it takes up like a one wall, and it's this giant calliope. But it used to be brought into town, I think, with a circus, and they would set it up, and it would take like a day to set up. But they've got theirs set up, and they can play music with it. It's all animatronic or something, but it's old. It is so cool. It is so cool. Carl's Corner. Catch you later, Steve. Catch you later, Carl's Corner. And Robert Lee points out the white Turbine Car was used in a race movie. Of course, that'd be the Lively set. The movie makes no sense whatsoever, but it's a fun movie. Mary E.M. says, you are sold out at the stall. Does it say that? Because I looked at that originally. Vampire Bear says 49 Tuckers were made, only 46 left. Actually, 51 were made, 47 still exist. And I'm citing a book on that called Preston Tucker's Battle of the Bill of Cards Tomorrow, which is a book I wrote. Alex says you should have someone tape it without you knowing. Well, if I have them do it, I would know, wouldn't I? Somebody actually taped the talk I gave a while back without me realizing it, and that did get put up. Carl's Corner says the Calliope crashed to the ground, blinded by the light. Doug Jones' subscribers not in the U.S. might want to see your presentation. Chief FC says, Steve, if you get self-conscious being recorded, it is a good thing you don't have a public speaking job or hobby. Well, no, the real problem, Vampire Bear, not a problem, but it's just you're so close, but you're off by one. And some people might not count the Tin Goose, which should count because it still exists. Believe it or not, though, like I'm speaking live right now. When I speak on camera and can edit it, it's a whole different mindset. But when I'm speaking to a live audience where people are sitting there watching me, it's another live. It's a different thing what I'm doing right now. And so I have to shift gears so hard to do that I'm concerned because the number one goal is I have an audience. I got to be good to this audience. So. Jason Brindamauer, don't forget the thumbs up. We got 162. Lewis Browning does say that it does say currently full, RSVP closed. Huh. I apologize. I feel bad about that. I know that they told me they had room for 200 people. And I got a note from the woman who runs the museum last week, and she goes, I think we're going to hit 200 this week. I'm like, okay. Meanwhile, Hi-Fi Andrews says, how much editing do you do on your posts? You must be good because they always feel like a single take. Thank you. I appreciate that. If you watch closely, you'll see sometimes I do them in one take, but once in a while you'll see the edits. And the edits happen where there'll be a point in the film where it clearly fades because I use a crossfade edit. So if I misspeak, I can then go back and I'll go, okay, that's the part I don't want. I remove it and then I take the two pieces, slide them together. And I've gotten pretty good at it. But if you watch carefully, you will see the crossfades happen. So they're there. I'm not trying to be deceptive. I just don't want to sit there and repeat myself. I'm already being accused of repeating myself. So anyway, that's going to wrap it up. We're past 3 o'clock. I've been here for more than 2 hours. Thank you, everybody. Had a great time. I'll see you next week where I will be 1 week older. If you come to the show on Thursday, I'll be there. Come on up. Be sure to introduce yourself. Otherwise, I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.